Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, November 4th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Yesterday, you heard the Chiefs talk about the Chiefs. Well, today, we bring in our columnists and beat writers to deliver the unfiltered version of this week's events. And there have been plenty for Herbie Teope, Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, and Sam Mellinger to discuss, from acquiring Melvin Ingram to trading Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, and not facing Aaron Rodgers this week when the Packers visit. We had a lot to get through. The show started as a SportsBeat Live and now is presented in podcast form. Let's get going.
Good morning from Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly conversation about the Chiefs with the folks in the media who know them best. Of course, I'm talking about Herbie Teope, Sam Mellinger, Vahe Gregorian, and Sam McDowell. And this show runs on your questions and comments. Bring them. Let's talk about what you want to talk about. I hope everybody had a good Halloween, especially the Sams who are with the young ones in the house. And I hope Herbie got his fill of candy corn this year. You know, we didn't go there, Herbie, pre-Halloween, but I just wanted to let everybody know and remind them their favorite Halloween candy is the most despicable, maybe stuff that any human being could ever consume.
Candy corn. You can't go wrong.
Oh my God. Dear God.
What?
Can we be shut down?
Hey, they have candy corn flavored Oreos. I just found that out in the last 2 weeks, and my goodness, I can't wait to get my hands on some.
Oh.
There's not a better 4-second summation of Herbie Teope and his time at the Star than that video right there. That is.
And I have to say, what I love is the uniformity of the reaction, even though it all comes in a little bit, everybody's got a little different look, a little different form. It was not staged. It was not choreographed. It was pure.
It was pretty natural.
From the heart.
That just has that waiting. She didn't even know we were going to bring up this conversation. Just immediately, she's got it ready. So she shows all of her friends clearly. She's got this video in the spot easily accessible.
Anyway. So, hey, look, a newsy week for the Chiefs, and starting with Monday Night Football victory over the New York Giants. And we've got a lot to get to, but let's start with a little bit of news this morning, Herbie. Nick Bolton made some news.
Yeah, Nick Bolton, the tackling machine out of Missouri. The NFL named him the Defensive Rookie of the Month. 43 tackles, including 7 for a loss. And the guy has been what the Chiefs have wanted in that defense, somebody who's going to be around the football and knows around the football. He closed out the month of October in a flurry, 15 tackles against the Titans, 11 against the Giants. He leads the Chiefs defense right now by a wide margin, 66 tackles. Second on the team right now is L'Jarius Sneed with 40. So Bolton has been the guy that, they thought they were getting when they used a second-round pick on him.
Tell you, there was a time earlier this year when I thought he was kind of a step slow and still wasn't getting it done in pass coverage. But just no arguing right now with the play that they're getting from the Missouri rookie.
Yeah, absolutely.
This stands out about him. I mean, he leads the team in tackles because he makes the tackle when he has an opportunity, and he gets there. I mean, I'm sure the pass coverage is still a question and maybe even an issue somewhere between that for him. But it is fun to watch him tackle, and I haven't said that about a lot of Chiefs in recent times.
You know how good he is right now? When the Packers had their press conference yesterday, Aaron Jones didn't even mention him. He mentioned Daniel Sorensen. So that tells you that the Packers are well aware of who the playmakers are on that Chiefs defense.
I would add just real quick, I think that Bolton and Willie Gay is a good partnership. So I think that Gay can sort of do some of the things that Bolton's not as good at. So I think that they, complement each other pretty well.
Before we continue, Richard checks in from Austria. He's lived there all his life, originally from Iowa, now in Austria. Mom once told me she'd like to have candy corn again. I got some from a specialty store in Vienna and brought them to her. she tried them and realized she actually didn't like them and must have been nostalgic about it.
You got to add hot sauce to it. Okay, Tabasco sauce fixes everything.
You just admitted it needs a fix.
Thanks, Richard, for that memory. Hot sauce. Okay. Let's stick with the defense in the news this week. Melvin Ingram becomes a Kansas City Chief. He acquired in a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Chiefs gave up a 6th-round draft pick. That happened on Tuesday. And pretty interesting. This is a player that the Chiefs have had their eye on since the preseason. We're hoping to sign him as a free agent. He ended up signing with the Steelers, but he does end up in the Chiefs uniform. And I don't know if he plays against the Packers on Sunday or not. What's the latest on that, Herbie?
Yeah, when Andy Reid talked to us Wednesday, he basically just said, the standard we'll see. He arrived Wednesday, was immediately involved with meetings, did the walkthrough. But, it's going to depend on how much he's able to absorb. I can probably see him being active and seeing some kind of rotational role as they get his feet wet in the scheme. But he's a guy that they are going to want to get into, on the field once he's absolutely comfortable with the defensive scheme and what his assignments are.
So what does he bring, Sam Mack, and how might he be used in the rotation?
Yeah, I mean, their biggest weakness this year is their pass rush. It arrived for the first time really against the Giants late in that game with Chris Jones back on the inside. I mean, Chris Jones had probably his most effective game since the opener, and it's because he was playing the 3-tech again. Melvin Ingram's presence allows Chris Jones to play a lot more of the 3-tech. Frank Clark I actually played his best game, and I would say 2 years on Monday night when you go back and watch his tape. So, if they could pair those two together and get a rotation with Mike Dana, maybe they can solve, like I said, what I think is the biggest issue. The question is, how much does Melvin Ingram have left? He's only got 1 sack this year. He's battled 3 injuries over the past 2 years. Including he didn't play last week because of a minor groin issue with the Steelers. But Pro Football Focus put out the stat. His pressure rate is at 12.9% this year. He has 18 quarterback pressures. His career is 12.8. So he's right in line with his career numbers. And that shows you he does have something left. And the attribute that the Chiefs need the most. The other thing about Melvin Ingram is he's not just, a one-trick pony that rushes the passer. He historically has been pretty good against the run as well, a good edge setter, an all-around player. But of course, I mean, just back to the top of this, he's 32 years old. So one other thing, though, about what Herbie just mentioned, Andy Reid didn't say whether or not what they expect from Melvin Ingram this week. Tyrann Mathieu actually said he expects him to be up to speed next week. And I don't know whether he's given something away there or whether he's just, talking from a player's perspective about what the reasonable expectations are.
Well, I tell you, it seems like when players come to the Chiefs, it always takes them a while to get up and going. It's not necessarily true with other teams. When players go to other teams, Zach Ertz goes to the Cardinals and catches a touchdown pass and is, after being in a Cardinals uniform for the first time and, in practice for 3 days. So just seems to take a while for new Chiefs to get acclimated. You're right, Sam, 32 years old, out of South Carolina. First year in the league was 2012. And man, he had some good games against the Chiefs over the years in San Diego and with the LA Chargers. This guy was, always seems to always have been in the backfield with when they played against Kansas City. So, what do we think? Is it Melly? Is this a good deal for the Chiefs?
Yeah, I like the trade a lot. Actually, I mean the 6th-round pick. I understand that they've got a guy who's their starting guard right now and playing really well, who was taken in the 6th round. So that pick's not nothing, but that's not a lot to give up for something that they really need. I mean, I just think that's a good fit. What Sam and Herbie have talked about of him on one side, Frank on the other, and Chris Jones up the middle. It just it makes a lot of sense. I think they're investing in this defense. I think the Chiefs front office. I mean, I think the front office and the coaches are buying into they've been a little bit better the last 3 weeks. The first half in Tennessee, notwithstanding, but the defense has played pretty well the last 3 weeks. So I think they're buying into that and they're investing. I think it's a good trade.
You know, one of the things I like the most about it is they had a chance to get Melvin Ingram in the spring. In March, I think it was his workout. And so they obviously could have had him without the 6th-round pick, but they didn't allow one mistake to compound and force another mistake by not going after him. You know, obviously when you have a chance to sign a guy and for whatever reason, I think we'll talk to Melvin Ingram today, right, Herbie? So, you know, we'll ask him that question as far as why didn't you sign here? Was it your choice? Was it the team's choice? We asked Andy that yesterday. He sort of implied it was the player's choice, which obviously implies it's finances, but Pittsburgh was able to meet the finances. So, you know, you've got a little bit of egg on your face when you could have had a guy without giving up a draft pick and now you give up one. But I also think it's commendable that the front office says we don't care about that aspect. This is just a move that makes us better.
Yeah, and to Sam's point, that's my understanding as well. When he came out here in March, you know, the Chiefs did make an offer, but the problem was, you know, Melvin Ingram was one of the highly touted free agent pass rushers on the market. So he wanted to test the market. And that's essentially what it boiled down to. As Sam points out, it was probably finances, and we'll find out for sure on later today.
Yeah, I'm glad we're going to hear from him. But this signing seems, or trade, this acquisition, the Chiefs seem to have bigger plans for Melvin Ingram than, say, they had Terrell Suggs in 2019, right? Suggs was more of a complimentary piece, and Ingram could end up starting for the Chiefs. Even though he only started one game for the Steelers, he did play more than half of the defensive snaps. I guess he was part of the rotation there. I haven't studied exactly what he did in Pittsburgh, had the one sack, but as Sam McDowell said, you know, was right in line with his career pressure rate. Doesn't he get thrown right into a defensive end rotation?
Yeah, I think so, Blair. I mean, Pittsburgh's got TJ Watt. So, you know, TJ Watt's going to get up a lot of snaps on one defensive end. The Chiefs don't have a guy like that. So there's more snaps to be had for a rotation. The Chiefs are also, you know, Brendan Daly, the defensive line coach, that's one of his attributes is he rotates even his best players out of the game pretty frequently. I mean, he likes to keep his defensive line fresh. So they use all the bodies. And so I think the type of snaps you're seeing Alex Okafor get are probably what you're going to see Melvin Ingram get. And Alex Okafor has been getting a lot of snaps.
I think the other reason why Matthew might have said, you know, when he kind of hinted that, you know, it'll probably take him another week, you got to remember, we're talking about a player here who has played predominantly in the 3-4 base his entire career. That's what they did in LA with the Chargers, and that's what they play in Pittsburgh. So, you know, he's going to have to acclimate to the 4-3 base. Of course, when we say base, that's only like maybe the first 2 or 3 plays of a game because so many personnel packages, you know, you're going to see a lot of 3-4. So he's going to have to acclimate to what the Chiefs want to do.
So Cody asks Bolton and Gay, the new Johnson and Houston, referring to Derek Johnson and Justin Houston. Well, in terms of having an impact on the defense in their prime, Derek Johnson and Justin Houston were, you know, they're gonna be in the Ring of Honor someday or the Chiefs Hall of Fame. We'll see about Bolton and Gay, but they certainly have played well, and the Chiefs are getting from them what they had hoped when they drafted both of those players in the second round in the previous 2 years. Okay, hey, so let's kind of stick with a defensive theme before we talk about the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Has anybody's feelings changed about the Chiefs in their performance on Monday night? I know that when we chatted right after the game, we were reacting to what we had just seen, and it was a little bit, you know, underwhelming to say the least. You know, they get by. They have 2 second-half field goals to get by a team with one of the worst records in the NFL at home. But I think, Melly, I've heard you mention it here. The defense did play well in that game, and maybe there's something to build on from a game. Listen, if they had lost, we would be having an entirely different conversation then and now for sure, and we'd be spinning it much more toward 2022 than we are now. So have your feelings softened a little bit about how that game played out?
They have, actually. I didn't expect this, but I had kind of I'm not trying to give away the column. I hope everybody obviously clicks and sends me cash because it's so good. But I began this as like sort of just a thought experiment of like, what does optimism for the rest of the season look like with the Chiefs? And I don't know if I just like talked myself into it, but I feel like the defense has a track record with Spagnuolo of getting better this time of year. And they appear to be getting better. And on offense, I know I'm oversimplifying, but on offense, the quarterback just has to play well. The quarterback has to have some discipline and some patience and be okay getting 8 yards, instead of trying to get 80 on a specific snap. And if that's the concern, if a lot of what ails the Chiefs is the defense, obviously, but it is getting better. And the quarterback, I don't know. That seems pretty fixable. I'm going to go ahead and get out on a limb and trust Patrick Mahomes that he'll be a good player. Now, look, like if Jordan Love goes for 350 and 4 touchdowns on Sunday, all bets are off, and if Mahomes does another one of these, like on first down, like YOLO throws downfield, then, all bets are off. The number 1 seed is not going to happen. But if you look at the schedule, I mean, there's a way that they can get in, and even if it's as the 5, 6, 7 seed, if they get in the playoffs, they're going to be a problem for somebody. And if I had to bet, who knows? But if I had to bet, I think that's where this thing is headed.
Vahe, you're always the big pessimist here. You're just kidding. What do you think, bud?
It's funny Sam said thought experiment, because I've been my thought experiment has been about how luck says a lot more about stuff than we really think of sometimes. And they've been playing bad football with bad luck, and sometimes it's hard to tell where one begins and the other ends. But I keep thinking about, it's 4 or 5, depending on how you interpret it. Half of Patrick Mahomes' interceptions went off of a Chief. I keep thinking about L'Jarius Sneed falling down when there's a pick 6 to be had. I keep thinking about how they've had luck that went their way in the past, whether it was, a poorly considered fake punt call by the Houston Texans in the playoffs, or you name it. But it makes me realize that if they just, this is to me a hinge that this can all still hang on for them. They're still largely the same group, and if they do trust the culture and they can just play more characteristically of what we've seen in the past, or AKA, as Sam put it, if the quarterback just is who he is, I think things can turn. And I do think this about the defense. Look, they've shown enough glimmers the last couple of weeks that you can at least tell yourself they might have some traction. And again, all bets are off when Jordan Love goes for 350. But still, I think I came out of that game feeling like that was the worst win I remember sort of absorbing by a Chiefs team. It didn't even feel like a win. When you said, Blair, at the start of the podcast, let's talk about the Chiefs win, I was like, what? Oh, yeah, they did win. But that said, they did win. And really one win against a team like the Packers could flip the way we feel about all this.
Yeah, and something happened to the Packers this week that increased the chances of the potential for a Chiefs victory. Just a couple of thoughts, though. Clyde asks, do you think Mahomes is playing a bit hurt? Any speculation there? Anything to wonder about? He certainly has been hit seemingly hit more often the first half of this season than I can remember during a stretch. Is there anything? Is that a possibility?
I don't think so, because, by rule, the NFL is supposed to list injuries. Now, granted, some teams don't, they'll probably try to skirt that, but Mahomes hasn't been on the injury list over the last couple of weeks. He's practicing fully, and he's talking to the media. I don't think that's an issue there at all.
I also would just say I don't see it in his play either. I mean, he seems agile. Now we can talk about like maybe he's making the wrong moves out of the pocket, right? But just physically, the way he moves, he seems good. He didn't have momentum in his body, and he flicked that 160-some yards downfield to Tyreek, the incomplete pass on Monday night. There was an absolute missile that he threw in Nashville 2 weeks ago that showed a lot of velocity. He seems physically fine, just his play. But, that's as Vahe likes to joke, that's my Twitter medical degree coming out.
You know what? I'll tell you this. There's a lot of velocity on that interception that he was trying to throw to Josh Gordon. Just kind of sailed a little.
I think this stems from Blair. There was a play where he rolls out of the pocket, and as he's coming to the sideline, he sort of jumps a little bit. It looks like he's favoring one of his legs. And so especially since he had that offseason toe surgery, I think there was just some speculation that it perhaps deals with that. Patrick Mahomes was asked yesterday if he feels any effects at all from that surgery, and he said no, that he feels completely healthy. So I just assume that's where that question's coming from, and it was asked yesterday.
By the way, quick question about the injury report. You guys remind me, didn't Tyron say after, was it the Washington game, that he had a broken finger or something worse? That's never shown up on an injury report. It just showed up in Tyron's statement.
It showed up the following week.
Oh, it did?
Yeah,
bad. Yeah. It didn't show up when he had it, and it sounded like he had
Well, he did it during the game. So.
Okay.
Yeah, not only that, he came out in practice wearing a heavy brace on his right thumb. So, yeah, and then he showed up on the injury report with it.
As Emily Litella would say, never mind.
And only you and I would remember who Emily Litella was.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
David reminds us that Daniel Jones had a perfect passer rating throwing Sorensen's way and somehow saw his snaps increase. That is my worry. Look, Daniel Sorensen, they just had had a Daniel Sorensen game. I will say this, on the long early pass, the first good thing that happened to the Giants offense on Monday night, Daniel Jones had no pressure on that throw. I mean, if I think the Chiefs had been able to get a little bit of pressure on Daniel Jones, then we wouldn't have seen Daniel Sorensen getting burned on that what turned out to be a 50-yard completion. That would have been pass interference if I forgot who caught it, if it hadn't been caught. So, but you're right. It's there's no hiding it. Daniel Sorensen's just having a tough year, and I've heard Sam, I've heard everybody mention it. This is it's kind of not Daniel Sorensen's fault he's playing as much as he is. The Chiefs don't have options there. So he's not a guy that should get the snaps that he was getting in the first half of the season. He's getting less, but still, look, he's a terrific special teams player, and that's where he should be. So,
yeah, Blair, there was like a tweet sent at me and a few reporters that got a ton of likes about, hey, you guys need to ask Steve Spagnuolo why he's playing Daniel Sorensen. And like, we have asked that question 1,000 times as far as what are you getting out of Daniel Sorensen? So I guess I just want to say, just because you don't like the answer doesn't mean the question hasn't been asked. And I realize I'm sort of replying to one person, but the answer has constantly been that, he's a guy that knows the system, knows where he's supposed to be. He can play multiple spots, kind of that hybrid linebacker, defensive back spot. The problem is he's proven this year I think he's already a guy who wasn't fast and he's lost a step. And so even if he knows where he's supposed to be, he's sort of pointing to it 5 or 6 yards away because he's just not fast enough to get there. But not only is playing him indicative of what you said, Blair, the other options on the depth chart, but he was isolated one-on-one 45 yards down the field. And there should never be a play that's called that isolates Daniel Sorensen from the Chiefs' perspective, where he's one-on-one deep with a wide receiver like that.
And that goes to my point earlier. You guys missed a joke, but like the Packers yesterday were asked about the Chiefs.
We caught the joke.
They got a great defense, and as he's going through the list of players, he doesn't mention Chris Jones. He doesn't mention Matthew. He mentioned Sorensen. So if we're noticing all these errors, other teams are starting to notice it as well.
Oh, they're not starting. I mean, they're well into that scouting report. Sorensen and every other Chiefs defender will not have to deal with Aaron Rodgers on Sunday. What a bombshell yesterday to hear about that. I'll share a couple thoughts, and I want to get your guys' opinion. The first is, what's it going to take for Patrick Mahomes to square up against Aaron Rodgers? It didn't happen in 2019 because of Mahomes' knee injury. It was the dislocated kneecap that he suffered a week earlier at Denver, and the Packers were the first game after that. And, of course, Matt Moore was the quarterback, and she's played well in that game but lost. Aaron Rodgers was spectacular that night. Was just fantastic. I think 3 touchdown passes, no picks. He was completing passes, falling backwards. He's just terrific. And then, I remember Sam and Vahe. I remember you were there a rainy night on Monday in Green Bay a few years ago. Aaron Rodgers beat Alex Smith, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the only loss that Aaron Rodgers has to the Chiefs came in the game in 2011 that basically it was Kyle Orton was the Chiefs quarterback, and Romeo Crennel was the interim coach, and the Chiefs somehow beat the undefeated Packers.
Yeah, they were 14-0 or 13-0, something. They broke the Packers. I think that was the year after the Packers had won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They're going to win the next 100 Super Bowls with this team because it was all young guys. That whole roster was like 23 to 27 years old, and they Chiefs broke them, man. They haven't been the same since.
You can make the case that was the game that got Andy Reid to Kansas City because they gave Romeo the job because of that game. And, it was, and then 2012 happened, and we know what a nightmare that season was. And they fired Romeo, and Andy Reid shows up in the 2013 season. So, all right, Jordan Love is the guy. And what's, Sam McDowell, I know you love point spreads and odds and everything. That was quite a jump that the line took when that news came out, because the betting line was absolutely trending toward the Green Bay Packers. Chiefs had opened up as a 3-point favorite, and after the Monday night game, it was down to pick 'em.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one player have a full touchdown effect on the line. The Chiefs say nothing changes with Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, just the same guy back there. There actually is a little bit of truth to that, which is the Packers don't have enough time to revamp their offense around Jordan Love in 4 days. I mean, they find out Wednesday that their quarterback's not going to play. They're coming to Kansas City. They're going to be traveling on Saturday. So really that's 3 days of install for Jordan Love. So he's going to have to run the stuff that Aaron Rodgers is running, at least from the same playbook. What plays they call could change. So the Chiefs now have to figure out, what does this guy prefer to do on those plays? And so that's what Tyrann Mathieu was talking about as far as, does he like to take his first read and throw it right away? Does he like to take some time in the pocket and allow himself to find the deep shot? And he's only thrown 7 NFL passes. So the answers to those are not coming from regular season film. They're having to watch him in the preseason and potentially even watching a little bit of his college tape to see his own preferences. But I mean, of course, it's a gigantic break for the Chiefs when one of the the reigning MVP is not going to be playing on Sunday.
Yeah, we're reminded that we could see Mahomes and Rodgers twice starting next year if he ends up with the Broncos, which was certainly the rumor during the off season. Brian says, I think the Packers will call more quarterback runs with Love. I absolutely think that's whether they call it or not. I think we're going to see Love run the ball quite a bit when he doesn't get his first or second option. I think he tucks it and runs. And of course, the Packers have a good running game with Aaron Jones. I just think we're not going to see Jordan Love fling it 30 times on Sunday, and it will try to shorten the game and keep Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs off the field.
I will say, Blair, Jordan Love was not a big runner in college.
Right.
His last year, I don't even think he ran for a single touchdown. I think he had like a couple hundred yards. I think, didn't he come out after his junior year? So I'm blanking on whether that was his junior or senior year. But I think he only had like 200 yards and 0 touchdowns. So he is more of a guy that prefers to stay in the pocket. Now, one of the reasons the Packers like them is he showed an ability to make some of that off-script, off-platform stuff. So, I guess I would say he's more of a guy that does his running behind the line of scrimmage as opposed to a guy that should beat you with getting 50, 60 yards. However, he's playing against a Chiefs defense that certainly is susceptible to giving up some yards to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. They caught one of the biggest breaks that any NFL team will catch this season. But Packers still have Devontae Adams. They still have Tunyon. Tight ends are a problem for this defense. Aaron Jones is ridiculous. And they also use him out of the backfield in the pass game. So, look, I mean, it's a huge break, but, the Packers still have a path.
Yeah, I'd say they have a path. I think we've come to not trust the Chiefs over here at any time this season, really. You can't trust them. When they play as well as they did offensively in Philadelphia or have a second half as they did in Washington, you think, okay, those are the familiar Chiefs, but they're just has not been enough of that for this team.
And Blair, that's why I'm pessimistic about this team. And I know the defense has shown some strides, but 2 of the last 3 games where they showed those defensive strides were against the hapless Washington football team and the Giants team that didn't have Saquon Barkley or Kenny Golladay. So, they caught a break Monday night against a shorthanded Giants team, and they almost lost that game. The Giants could have won that game. Now, Jordan Love is obviously a quarterback, so that's a different animal, but the Packers are still, like Melly pointed out, they're still loaded.
And they're the hottest team in football, right? After that opening game loss to the Saints, they've won 7 in a row, beat the Cardinals after, the last undefeated team in the NFL. And David asked about Adams on the protocol list. I think the Packers are going to find out today and are expecting Devontae Adams to be off the list and be ready to go on Sunday. So, hey, I'm going to wrap it up. But before we do, hey, Vahe, I wanted to ask the Melvin Ingram move wasn't the only one the Chiefs made this week. They traded Laurent Duvernay-Tardif to the New York Jets and got back a tight end. I have to write his name down because I can't. Daniel Brown, mostly a special teams guy, reserve tight end. But the Chiefs bid farewell to a player who meant a lot to this organization, both on and off the field.
As we think about Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, we think about him for what he did off the field. I forgot about Daniel Brown writing the Da Vinci Code before turning into an NFL player. No, seriously, though, really, and I think we can all probably remember this, the moment John Dorsey was telling us about a very interesting fella in Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, and he is maybe the most interesting man in the world. I mean, it's amazing what he's done. And, he's in the process of delivering twins on draft day, the biggest day of his life. And at that time, but then taking it to another dimension, I thought he was kind of a curiosity, maybe even an experiment in some ways, coming out of McGill, not pretty raw when he got here, but credit to Dorsey for seeing that in him, Dorsey and the scouts, and credit to Andy Reid for wanting to work with a guy who also wanted to be a doctor. And lo and behold, he's a key part, or at least a fundamental part of a Super Bowl winning team. And yet really maybe his greatest deed is in what he did last year, taking the season, opting out to help fight the battle against COVID. And he stated it so eloquently a number of times. Just really cool that he'll always be associated with the Chiefs that way. I think he was a bit of a fan favorite, which is kind of cool too. I think they appreciated him for more than just football.
I'll never forget talking to him at the Super Bowl. So this would have been the Super Bowl that year, I think, was on February 3rd. So this would have been the last day in January. And so think about that, the last day in January, and all, we're hearing about these reports about a flu or something in China that's spreading, but we're all gathered in the Super Bowl ballroom talking to players, and we don't hear much about it, but Laurent is asked about it by another reporter, and he expressed a lot of concern about what he was hearing about the virus in China. And so, a month and a half before everything shut down, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif was, because of who he is and what he's, what his background is, was kind of all over that story. When we weren't.
I think it's serious, I think was part of how he put it. And that kind of is amazing too. And I don't know. This is a side point, but I think we discovered later, I certainly saw reports later that the virus was in Miami. It was traceable there, even when we were there without knowing it. So I don't know how the world has changed since then is amazing.
There's no smooth segue here from that. So apologies up front. But one of my favorite, he was always great to talk to, in the locker room, just obviously a smart guy, but just expansive on some things if you ask the right question. And one of my favorite moments was in Denver when the quarterback's knee went sideways. And Larry was right there, as a player. And so you want to talk to him about what he saw and all that stuff. And then I remember just ready to walk away. And I was like, you know what? When am I ever going to get this chance? Right. And so you go back what do you know about this injury, doctor? and his diagnosis, he said that specific tendon, there's a lot of tension there. So the number one thing is how quickly that knee gets put in place. And if you remember, and I forgot the guy's name now, but he was a hero in Kansas City. But the doctor that came on, it wasn't Rick, but it was somebody else. And they put the knee back in place within 30 seconds. It was really fast. And he says, oh, that's the number one thing. I was like, okay, trust my source.
I'll always be indebted to him for some restaurant recommendations in Montreal, since I get up there a couple of times a year.
Can I just say one of my favorite memories of him is bumping into him in long-term parking at KCI and just chatting with him out there. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm in long-term parking, but what are you doing here? He was going home for 3 days.
Riding the blue bus, huh?
Yeah.
And let's end it on this. This is also a very nice note. Tommy Sparks says, this is to Herbie, love the tribute to Therese. That was Herbie took a picture of the plaque that was new up at in the Chiefs press box and tweeted it out. So if you haven't seen it, go to Herbie's Twitter account and go back a few days and look at the tribute that the Chiefs issued for Therese Paylor, our former colleague and friend that Herbie made sure everybody got to see.
His father actually called me the other day, and he mentioned that was his birthday. So Monday was Therese's father's birthday, and he mentioned that that was the best birthday present he had ever seen. So kudos to the Chiefs for doing that.
Excellent. All right. Hey, great catching up with you guys. Herbie, Sam, Vahe, and Sam, and of course to Beth Welsh, our producer. Love talking to you. And Herbie, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we're moving back to Friday next week. Chiefs testing is on Thursday, so we go back to Friday. Join us again after the game on probably around 8:30 or so on Sunday, and then we move back to our usual Friday mornings at 9:30. So until then, we'll talk to you later.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Tip of the cap to Herbie Teope, Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, and Sam Mellinger for stopping by and talking Chiefs. Links to stories about the Chiefs can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. So let's talk about the morning sports edition. If you're not seeing it, you're really missing out. On kansascity.com, you go to the Stars e-edition. That's a replica of the printed newspaper on your screen that comes with your digital subscription. Well, now there's an updated sports section produced separately that goes along with it. When you open the e-edition, there's a box in the upper right-hand corner that says All Editions. You click on that and you can access tons of pages about sports. Hey, you might also get a link in your email. I do, and it's there by about 6 a.m. every morning. However you see it, you know what I'm talking about. It is complete coverage of the previous day's sports news, feature statistics, everything. It's fantastic. Hey, thanks for reading the Star and listening to our podcast lineup. You're helping support the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City, and we cannot produce programs like SportsBeat KC without you. We'll be back on Friday talking about the college football weekend. Hope you'll join us.